if you had to buy a multi-tool for somebody who was going into the trades, or if you were going into the trades and needed a multi-tool, what tool would you buy? Because it's a question I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think I would kind of want to live in this world here with these full-size multi-tools. I've got 3 tools here as I get the tape off of this from the thumbnail. The first is the Gerber Center-Drive, and this is a tool that I've never carried, but I probably should have back in the day. It's a tool I like quite a lot, and I think it thrives in that kind of trades environment. I've also got the Leatherman Surge. This was kind of my first full-size multi-tool. I carried this on production a lot, and then pretty recently I picked up the Dual-Force, which is obviously a little bit different. We'll talk about those differences here in a minute. But if you were embarking upon the search, let me know in the comments below what you would be looking for, what's important to you, and what kind of tools you would be inclined to choose. So first of all, let's go with the Leatherman Surge. Let's give a quick rundown, because that's kind of the standard in a lot of ways. It is a larger tool. Here's a Leatherman Charge next to it for comparison. Substantially heavier, obviously. The Charge is a little lighter than the Wave, but nice beefy pliers. You've got the externally accessible knife blades. There's serrated and plain. You've also got an interchangeable file saw combo here, and there should be some externally accessible scissors as well. Those scissors are why I chose the Surge when I was looking at tools. Something that on set, I worked in video production for a long time, and still kind of do, I guess. But those scissors are a little more common than if you're, building a house. Inside, you've got a selection, a couple of flathead screwdrivers, a nice awl, a can opener, and a bit driver. Now, the first thing I did, literally in the parking lot at Cabela's, where I got this, is I took that bit driver, which comes with a combination 1-2 Phillips on this side, and the other side is a 3/16 slotted. I immediately swapped that out with the number 1 and number 2 Phillips from my Skeletal. And let me put those side by side. So the main difference is, or the reason I chose this is going to have a little bit bigger number 2 Phillips, a little bit more precise to what the need is versus having that combi bit. And you already have 2 flathead screwdrivers in here. I think they're pretty universally sized. Obviously, you're missing that middle ground, but that's not that. I'd rather have the small and the large. And this gives you a little bit more precision when doing Phillips. The benefit is you can take that bit, throw it in your Skeletal, and I like that a lot more for quick access, because the Skeletal is not for doing, real work. It's for quick, easy access, and then that allows me to carry, I think I have a 3/16 inch bit, hex bit in here as well, because that's a common camera, common size on cameras. That's actually common across the board. So that was a swap I made. Anyway, I digress. That is the tool set on the Leatherman Surge. See, this thing's been used a fair bit. It's not too destroyed, but or it's not really destroyed much at all, but still a little bit of stiffness in the pliers. That's something you're going to see in the bigger tools, I find. The one that was competing with this in my head at the time was the Gerber Center-Drive. It had just come out, and it boasts a couple of features that I think are beneficial. One, you have the one-hand accessible pliers. So you've got this slide out the front pliers. They are spring-loaded, and I think you can snap them out just like so. Also on the outside, you've got a nice plain edge knife blade, nice beefy knife blade that's got our thumb bars in it. And then on the other side, you've got what they call the Centerdrive style screwdriver. And you can see that is a little bit more in line. So when you're twisting, it's not off to one side. That I could take or leave, but it is awesome to have that externally accessible screwdriver that takes standard 1/4-inch bits, so you can change that out with whatever you want. Inside this tool, you've got a couple of, well, quite a few internal tools. So you've got a pry bar. Now, a lot of people have told me that that has broken on them, and that is kind of, I think it's a cast tool, so that doesn't surprise me. You've got a very sharp awl, and then you've also got, if I can get them out, and it's, there we go, nice big file, totally fine, and a full serrated blade. And they make, I think, a Centerdrive, what do they call it? Centerdrive Pro or something. They make another version of this tool. It's got a slightly different tool set. And on the other side, you're going to have a little extra bit holder that gives you an extra bit for that external tools. That is, and I honestly kind of regret having bought the Surge. You see the plier heads are a bit different as well. I think that where the Centerdrive excels is it has the 3 tools that you use the most accessible. Everything else is extra almost all the time. Obviously, there's certain times you're going to want to pull something out. So it depends on kind of the situation, what you have access to, that sort of thing. And I think when you're looking at like a tradesman's multi-tool, kind of the place that these are going to fit in is the trip savers. They're going to save you a trip back to your truck. They're going to save you a trip to the toolbox to grab more tools because, oh, I just got to do one little thing, and I've got an option to do that on my hip. So that's where that's kind of my criteria, is what's going to save you the most time. And, pulling out a little awl is probably not going to happen unless this is the only tool you have. But you're not going to drill holes with it all on a job site. Let's jump to the Gerber Dual-Force. Now, this was kind of revolutionary in that it has these slip joint pliers, so you can grab much, much beefier objects with those plier heads or get down to the smaller size. The way that's constructed is it's plates of presumably stamped steel and with a little bit of rivets to keep them together. Interesting design. I don't know how well it holds up. I have not tested it, but it is an interesting design. Inside there is no tools. However, on the outside you have 4 externally accessible tools as well as 2 additional bits that are held in the outside. And that's a nicer bit holder than you see on the Centerdrive. It's a molded plastic and it's really easy to pop out. As far as the big tools, you have the same Centerdrive screwdriver. I think this is kind of the big thing that, you use a screwdriver a lot in different situations, and sometimes you need a 1/4 turn and nothing else. You don't need to break out a drill. You don't need to break out the proper screwdrivers. You do have a file. It doesn't feel very aggressive. It has an edge saw on it, or an edge file on it, and then there's a chisel tip to it, which is at an angle. That I don't love. Maybe it indicates it's more for scraping. I feel like I don't get as much control if it's not in line. I would just like that squared off, to be honest. And then if you need to just clean up a mortise or something like that, yeah, that's reasonable. Not on woodworking, but if you're hanging a door or something and you need to just knock a little bit off. You're also going to have the same nice big blade, beefy blade that you have on the Centerdrive. And now that's an issue right there. I'm going to show you. I just struggled with that. The other side, you've got a nice beefy wood saw. This might be the beefiest wood saw that I'm aware of. And that can also be handy when you've got something you just need to, you run the circular saw through, but you've got to get just that little extra bit knocked off. That saw could very well come in handy. You saw there, though, that I struggled with this. And I've got one of our wrenches here. I'm going to try and tune this up ever so slightly. But the frame shape here is actually causing an issue where my thumb cannot really actuate that lock bar without bumping into the frame. And so it is difficult for me to close the blade one-handed. That is not an issue that I experience on the Centerdrive. I hope that was in frame. But the Centerdrive has a little bit different shape for the cutout. You can see that the Centerdrive, the locking tab is a little bit further away from the edge of the frame, and the frame's narrowed, so you can get to that a lot easier. I almost find you want to come in with a second hand, which is obviously not ideal. You come to the Surge, there is a much larger cutout, so that's a complete non-issue. It's also a lot stiffer on the Dual-Force for some reason. I'm going to just loosen that up, and we're going to see if we can get that to a place that we like. But those are the tool sets, and if you weren't familiar, now you are. What is, you should never do this with the blade open like I just did. That's a silly thing to do. Okay, let me give that, I mean, I gave that quite a bit, and now we've created blade play, which means it's too loose. So it is supposed to be tighter than that. So we will cinch that back up. Now the play is gone, but yeah, just a very stiff blade. And that is unfortunate. This is a really neat idea. I think the larger pliers are intriguing for someone in the trades, but if it's not going to work successfully, smoothly, properly every time, I don't love this as that kind of a tool. Additionally, I think the needle nose are the way to go in this situation. I think if you need pliers, if you're turning bolts, if you're turning, when you need slip joint pliers, you're turning larger things, you need a proper tool if you're in that type of trade. When you need to pull a little connector out of the back of a circuit board, something like that, and you just can't quite get in there with your fingers, needle nose pliers will do. And these are about as good as what you would find in a proper tool, a quote unquote proper tool. And that is one of the reasons I really, really like the needle nose style. The reason I actually am leaning towards kind of giving my random recommendation here on the Centerdrive is that external screwdriver. I think obviously a blade is one of the top tools you're going to use. One of the top tools that isn't going to be covered elsewhere in your toolkit. And you'll probably have screwdrivers around, but to be able to have that bit driver, you could load this up with whatever bit is most common in your industry. You can have a spare bit of a different size, and just if you need to turn that outlet plate, if you need to twist, whatever as you're doing final inspections, love this tool for that idea. I do not love the internal tool set. First of all, a serrated blade is kind of pointless unless you just keep it as your beater blade and use it on things that you shouldn't. But you got to open this up. You got to open the pliers up to get to it. A file, couldn't really care. Would love to see a wood saw in here, because that is something. I mean, I would take the file, and a wood saw would be kind of my go-to. Having a little poker is fine, and the pry bar. The pry bar is more useful, and it's got a nail puller. I guess it's technically a can opener or bottle opener. Don't really care about that, but you have them. Where I think that excels is in those externally accessible tools. Obviously, as an all-around tool, I think the Surge takes it. The Surge just has, it doesn't overdo it with the flatheads like some tools. It has, 2 flatheads. You've got the bit driver, which you can choose what you carry with. Don't care about can openers. The awl comes in handy occasionally, so I won't completely bash on it. It's not my must-have tool. Very good pliers, and obviously it's just a robust tool. One thing I can't tell you through the camera is how much more stable this feels. This is like holding just a chunk of like an ingot, and this feels mechanical and has lots of parts, and in that breeds sort of questions about its longevity and its sturdiness, etc. So that's not to say that this tool is going to fail. It's just a question of how that feels in my hand. But I do recommend, honestly, either of these tools. I don't have a Super Tool 300. It's on the list now because I forgot that I don't have one. Those are going to be a little more basic. Those are, again, like something like throwing a toolkit for you know, if you need something extra. But on my hip when I'm working, I want to have one of these. I want to have one of these whether I'm doing, you know, framing or, you know, imagine if you're doing electrical or HVAC or stuff like that. I think these would be great recommendations. However, I don't work in those industries. I did some set construction back in the day. I'm not really in that those trades. So I want to hear from you guys what you recommend. I think there's people that are looking and would love to hear. So let me know your trade down below if you're in the trades of any kind and what kind of tools you find most useful on a day-to-day basis. That's kind of my thought process. Just kind of sitting around in the office thinking about this stuff, and would love to hear your guys' input. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you in the next video.